comments on things like that and the counterintelligence component of cyber defense.
Thanks, Ken. You want to share that, Mike? Thanks. Dave?
Good morning. Dave Thomas. I'm the Deputy Assistant Director for the Cyber Division of the FBI. Cyber is the #3 priority of the FBI behind counterterrorism and counterintelligence. So as you can see, it's a very high profile for our director of what we work on a daily basis. Within the Cyber Division, we work counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and criminal computer intrusions, which I've done for the past, on and off now, for the past 6 years. I also have the responsibility for our cyber action teams, which we deploy worldwide and for any type of major intrusion investigation at any given time. For any given week, we probably have somebody in 6 to 7 countries around the world working on cyber incidents. During the presentations that we've heard throughout the last couple of days, questions have come up from different people on who do we report cybercrime to? Can law enforcement work at this issue? And what are our capabilities and our strengths and our weaknesses? And I think you have a very excellent panel here to answer some of those questions where some of the other speakers probably could not. And we welcome your questions and look forward to answering those for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Before we start the questions, I guess I ought to say what DC3 is. I'm an Air Force Office Special Investigations Special Agent, computer crime investigator for 20 years. I'm assigned to the Defense Cyber Crime Center up in Linthicum, Maryland, Baltimore. And we have 3 major entities within the Defense Cyber Crime Center. We have the world's largest accredited digital forensics lab, about 90 people. We also have a training program, the Defense Cyber Investigative Training Academy, that trains the investigators and forensic examiners for the Department of Defense. We also train FBI, Secret Service, and State Department's Diplomatic Security Service agents. If you're in DoD, these courses are open to you as well for free. You just pay your TDYs. And in the Defense Cybercrime Institute, which I'm the director of, and we do the research and development of tools, and as Tim Huff mentioned, the validation, the testing and validation of those tools to make sure they do what they're supposed to do, because we're supporting a crime lab. So kind of a center of excellence for the Department of Defense in supporting the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Office of Special Investigations, Defense Criminal Investigative Service, all the DoD law enforcement counterintelligence investigative organizations. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you guys, and we'll answer your questions the best we can. Yes, sir, in the red. Real loud so everybody can hear you, please.
I would like to raise a point, maybe in sort of Colonel Boyd's spirit.
Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Well, I think I'll take the first round, but I think if you look at any analogy, the best offense is a good defense. So that's what we depend on. If you look at the OODA loop and the concept, the fact that you can't act against the adversary on the other side, we as the federal government can. But it doesn't mean that you don't have things that you can do, that you can't act and you can't be offensive. And that offense for you would be the security of that system to prevent that attacker on the other side from gaining that access.
I guess what I'm pointing to, though, is in the quotes here, you say getting inside the adversary's decision cycle, which would make the assumption that within your action, within your observation, orientation, and decision, you're going to act upon the adversary, not to actually act upon yourself. Right? And that, I'm just saying, it takes a very different form, because if you only act upon yourself based on your adversary, then you're not getting inside their loop. Frankly, you're just riding their loop upon yours.
Well, let me take a stab at it. So my answer probably won't be as long as your question, though. In the Department of Defense, you know, pretty large business, like Bob was saying. You know, one of the largest enterprises in the world, if not the largest. And what we've done is we've integrated and built a process with the system administrators and the first responders, the CERTs, and we've built in the law enforcement counterintelligence community into that. So we have a joint task force for global network operations, and we have intel folks who are observing the adversaries, multiple adversaries, whether it's a foreign intelligence service, whether it's a group of hackers, you know, so we're gathering criminal intelligence, foreign intelligence, and we're looking at where they're going to attack, what are they interested in, and we've put the intel community, the counterintelligence community, the law enforcement community, the legal community, got to get the prosecutors and the lawyers involved, along with the system administrators, first responders, and it's a team sport. This is not an individual. This is an organization. So as a business, I would say what you do is you have a relationship with the law enforcement, whether it's state and local or the federal law enforcement agencies that are going to help you respond to that. And maybe they can, you develop that relationship, maybe they can gather intel to tell you what to protect, like Dave said.
And I think also, when you're talking about getting inside your adversary's decision model, I think any good system administrator out there is doing that constantly. If they see a systematic attack occurring on their network or to their network, they're trying to find out, okay, well, what is this guy's pattern? Where is he going to be striking next, so that they can start fortifying their network so they don't have any other compromised boxes, or they start closing loops. So that's how that system administrator is getting inside the adversary's OODA loop. Okay.
If I'm attacking your network, I'm controlling your clock.
Well, we are in a reactive, yes, but there are proactive things that you can do when you're being attacked.
I mean, you could misinform me. That would definitely raise the cost of my observation and orientation.
You know, there are some behind-the-scene channels where various agencies share information, and some of that are intrusion detection logs. So if we see somebody doing certain kinds of probes in one point, we're going to protect ourselves in other points as well.
So let me just be clear. I completely agree with you that. I think that you folks are in organizations that absolutely can get inside the adversary's OODA loop. But if I was in the financial sector, or let's say the energy sector, and frankly, if I didn't engage you folks, I would be frankly at a loss of getting inside the adversaries. So what you're calling for, I think, that really needs to be made specific, is that in order to do this for an organization in the Global 2000, they really have to have a tighter integration with you folks if they're going to pull this off.
I think to a certain extent,
I think we all agree.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and I think to a certain extent that's happening at a kind of probably not at the level we'd like to see it, but you know, I'll throw down Carnegie Mellon right now as a very good example of a group of people that are part of this community in the private sector and federal law enforcement holding hands and putting up that fence and sharing some very valuable information. And just quickly, I'll make a real quick point I'll put on my old hat as a old guy that was at the state level reacting to all kinds of intrusions on the state system and private systems, what we found that we had to do was make a concerted effort to allow the victim to choose whether they wanted to be a victim or not. So our focus was to get the system up and running, and if during that process we could collect evidence, and certainly we did, but we left it to that business owner as to whether they wanted to be a victim. Hopefully that's going to change in the future, but I mean, that's kind of where we were a year ago. I just took off my hat a year ago, and that's where we were locally. So.
Yes, sir, in front row. Real loud so the guys in the back can hear.
Where does a smaller company or small organization go if they've had trouble with a cyber attack or an intrusion? With a physical crime, breaking and entering, it doesn't matter if you're a large company or an individual, call the police and someone comes up and tries to surprise them. Where would obviously a large corporation like a police department have an idea where to go? Where does a small company go with a cyber crime issue?
The exact same place. I mean, you have FBI office, every field office in every state. You have United States Secret Service, Postal. I mean, any one federal agency who has jurisdiction over cyber crime would certainly take the complaint. There's certainly partnerships out there also. Within every FBI office, we have something called InfraGard, 14,000 members, companies, large, small, where they have a relationship with the FBI to report computer intrusions. Secret Service has something similar with the New York Electronic Crime Task Forces across the country. There's all types of partnerships between the federal government and industry where we want your information and we want the reporting to come through so we can assist you. But I think a lot of it depends on, and one question we get all the time is, who do we report to? And it really doesn't matter who. It's develop a relationship with some entity so you know who to call when you pick up the phone, because there's several agencies out there that will be willing to help you in several avenues to get that information in.
And speaking from a state and local level, that's key. What you said is exactly right. It's up to you to establish that relationship. Trust me, these guys are so busy, they're not out there looking for more work to do. They got plenty of work to do. So it really behooves you to find those people in your community who can respond at a local level, because it may not be something that the FBI or anybody else really can respond to.
Anybody have any idea how many law enforcement agencies there are in the United States? It's over 20,000 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, and you know what? They're not all created equal. So if your law enforcement agency that you develop a relationship with, your local one, doesn't have the capability, help them. You know, I've had several folks come to me and say, hey, you know, at this conference, how do I help my local law enforcement? And you volunteer, and you train them. And you develop that relationship with them, and everybody benefits. But there's 20,000 law enforcement agencies just in the United States, and they all aren't created equal.
And we interact with almost every state and local lab around the country. What we see are people from the LE side beginning to forge those relationships, but Jim's exactly right. I mean, if you're Boeing or Cisco or Intel or whoever you are, and you can help that local lab out with funding for equipment or training, trust me, that helps with building that relationship, and trust me, they need the funding. There's kind of a choke point for funding at the state and local level. They will welcome you with open arms.